You have heard about the tabletop gaming scene, board games, card games, party games, miniature games. You're interested in it, but you don't know where to begin. And today we're going to be discussing where should you start your journey. Now, this isn't just aimed at people who are new. Obviously, existing gamers can watch this video and lend their advice to everybody else too. Let them know any games that I don't know of, or I haven't mentioned, that are great places for them to get introduced to the hobby. So today I'm going to break down all of the gaming recommendations into different categories. You can decide which of these categories applies to your groups. So let's get started. Board games are a large part of this industry, and they are one of the most diverse. You have games that cover numerous different systems, whether it be deck building, tile placement, and then within that subset you have loads of different themes. You can choose games around the themes that you like. Maybe you're into sci-fi, maybe you're into fantasy. There are games about everything. And so I'm going to reel off a bunch of games that I think are quite varied, but are easy systems and rules to grasp and understand. So we'll start with one of the most iconic ones, which is Ticket to Ride. In Ticket to Ride, you are managing the construction of different routes via train networks across whichever iteration of this game you get. You can get a USA board, you can get a Europe board, and plenty of others. And you are going to be building train networks, and you're going to be establishing routes to meet certain cards and objectives. It's a very great game, iconic, and a perfect starting point. Next up is Canvas, a game about making paintings. You're going to be collecting different cards and arranging them in a stack to create a unique painting against the various backgrounds you get given at the start of the game. And through these paintings, you're going to try and fulfill conditions to earn victory points. At the end of the game, whoever has the most is the winner. It's as simple as that. A beautiful game with lovely art. It really stands out. Next up is Planet, a game where you are building your own world. You're going to be adding magnetic tiles showing different types of biomes to your planet and adjoining these tiles together so that you build large swathes of land where you have a different climate. These climates are where these animal species can live, and if you fulfill the conditions more than everybody else at the table, this animal species will live on your planet and you will take the card. So you're trying to build a planet that is habitable for different species. It's a beautiful game. It stands out in my collection as unique. It's a very puzzly game and a very interesting one. Next up is Catan, and it's an old game, a bit of a mixed reception nowadays, but it's still a classic and it has introduced many people to the hobby. In the game you'll be rolling dice, and if you are on a tile that matches the dice roll, you will collect resources. And you're going to be building roads and structures across the board in an effort to collect as many resources as you can and start to collect victory points through various means. If you have a set target, by the end of the game you win. And it's as simple as that. It's a very good game. It encourages trading, it encourages negotiation, and is a very simple system that is accessible to most. Up is Potion Explosion, a game where you will be taking glass beads from a large display as they fall down through it, and you're going to be using these beads to pay as resources to create different concoctions, different potions, and you will gain powers and benefits from doing so, and these potions will also generate you victory points. You'll be racing against everybody else at the table to get the most. Carcassonne is an iconic title where you're going to be building out a world, and you're going to be creating cities and road networks and lakes, and you're going to be placing your people in an effort to gain the most victory points, whether you be placing them into cities or on roads or in fields. The decision is down to you, but after you place a tile, you place a person if you want, and they will get you points at the end of the game depending on how big that area or zone is. It's a very good game, very nice theme, and it's just had a refresh I believe recently. This is a great place for you to start if you like the idea of tile laying. Next up is Zombicide, a game where you will be battling against a horde of zombies. You and the other players will be working cooperatively together to scavenge for supplies and find whatever you need to complete the main objective. And whilst you'll be doing that, you'll be versing various different forms of zombies, some progressively harder than the next. This game, although it is large and has a huge number of miniatures, is very accessible and has an easy system for you to understand. Once more, you even have the option of choosing whichever setting you prefer, whether that be Western, sci-fi, modern, even Marvel nowadays. So you have a host of options at your fingertips. This is a great entry point a perfect entry point, and has served as an excellent entry point for people in the past. I highly recommend Zombicide if you're into cooperative titles. Next up is Marvel Splendor. You can choose the original Splendor, it's just that this theme appealed to me more. And in this game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be collecting resources, chips in this case, they're poker chips. And these resources will allow you to buy cards, and in the Marvel variant these cards are various characters from said universe. You're going to be using these cards to expand your pool of chips, and you're going to constantly increase the amount you have available to buy better and bigger cards, with the aim to take the Infinity Stone in this case and claim victory. This is a great game. It allows you to build up a little engine throughout the course of it, and the rules are relatively straightforward. They are not complicated. It's a great entry point. Horrified sees you versus Universal monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, and they're going to be trying to hinder your plans as you try to complete a main objective, whatever that might be. You're going to be maneuvering your characters around the board, collecting items, searching for things, interacting with various locations, whilst these monsters are trying to assail your plans. The rule system is very welcoming, it's very easy to understand, a great one to grasp, and if you're into the horrified theme, this is a perfect place to start. Next up is Unmatched, a battling game where you and an opponent or more can verse each other with iconic characters or personalities from myth and legend, and these characters will move around the board as you position yourself to use attacks with various cards in your deck. And you can get various things like King Arthur, Sinbad the Sailor, and if you get expansions there's a whole host of characters from either TV, movies or mythological ones, and you can battle it out with a whole host of different characters. This is a great system, it's very intricate but easy to understand, and it allows you to have some epic duels. Tiny Towns lets you build a small village with anthropomorphic animals. It's a small game, a puzzly game where you have a small city board and you're going to be collecting resources based upon what the other players choose on their turn. You're going to be placing these resources in your city, and the position of these resources will allow you to build structures if you put them in particular patterns, and the buildings available are dictated at the start of the game with a random layout of cards. So every game is different. Tiny Towns feels different. Every session is a unique session, and you're going to be working with a constrained environment, trying to build a nice city and join structures together to gain victory points and bonus points based on their placement. It's a very puzzly game and an intelligent one. Disney Villainous is a brilliant game where you get to play the iconic Disney villains. In your personal decks, unique to your characters, are all the heroes that challenge and verse you, and you're going to be building your deck, deploying minions, strengthening your position so that you can take down these iconic heroes when they come out. But you're also battling against all the other villains at the table in an effort to meet your unique objectives. Every single villain has its own unique tasks and objectives to meet, and although they all play differently, they're all easy to follow and easy to understand. This game is a very welcoming one, and if you're a fan of the Disney licensing, then of course this is a brilliant place to start. Not to mention that on top of the animated movies, they've also done sets around Star Wars and Marvel, so you have the variety of choice. In Explorers of the North Sea, you are a Viking clan going out into uncharted waters. You're going to find new islands, you're going to find new animals to bring back to the mainland, you're going to find enemy encampments, settlements that you can raid, you're going to find enemy ships that you're going to do battle with. Although the Viking theme is a more mature theme, because obviously there's more violence, this game is very light-hearted. It takes all of that away and makes it into a very family-friendly title about exploration rather than conquest, which is more the associated thing with Vikings. So in Explorers, you are exploring and finding new things and erecting settlements on new islands. It's a brilliant game and it's very accessible. In Quadropolis, you are going to be city planners. You're going to be laying out your city, placing structures so that they are adjacent to others to gain victory points. The positions of your buildings is going to be very important because they can gain you quite a significant amount of points at the end of the game, and they gain benefits depending on what they're next to. Quadropolis is a beautiful game and a very intricate one. I like the puzzly nature of this title. I like how you're thinking not only about the placement of your engineers on the main board to take pieces, but also about where you're placing them on your own board. This game is very well designed and I rate it very highly. In Pandemic, you are all highly trained professionals with unique skills. You're going to be working together cooperatively to battle against 4 different spreading contagions across the globe. You're going to be trying to contain them and keep them under wraps whilst you develop cures to actually bring about the end of these pandemics. And they are going to be exploding outwards in all directions. You're going to struggle to contain them, so teamwork is going to be key in this game. This title is very iconic. It led to numerous follow-ups and inspired numerous other games. It's a great system. It's a challenging system that will test you, will push you, and will make sure that you work together as a team, because if you don't, you're going to struggle to win this game. Survive Escape from Atlantis is a brilliant title. In it you will be trying to get your meeples, your faction, off of the fabled city which is sinking into the sea. You'll be trying to get them to the other islands at the edges of the board, and in that journey you can use boats or swim for it. But you're not alone. Sea serpents, sharks, whales will all hinder your ability to escape, and you're going to have to move quickly because the clock is against you. The volcano in the centre of the island is exploding, and when the eruption begins, the game is over. You'll be forming temporary alliances, working with the other people at the table, or sending the various monsters towards them instead of your people. It's a funny game, a challenging game, and a really enjoyable one. Next up is a racing game, Formula D, and I find this game very accessible, very easy to understand. There's a couple of tricky parts if you play the full mode, but if you stick to the basic mode, you will have a blast with this. It'll be easy for everybody to get on with. In the game, you're going to be essentially doing a Formula 1 race or a NASCAR American race, and you're going to be driving around the board. But you're going to be going around corners where you're going to have to control your speed and slow down, and you're going to have to manage your different gears of the car. So you'll have to move up gears and move down gears at the appropriate times. It's a very well designed game. Really enjoy it. It's very welcoming. If you play the basic mode, you shouldn't have any trouble with it. Santorini is a chess-like inspired system where up to 3 people can contend with tricky and strategic moves to try and move their piece to the highest tier of Santorini, the city that you are building. This is a fantastic 3-player game. So if you have that unique number of people who like games, this is a great title to get. It's very thoughtful, it's very thinky, exactly like chess. A brilliant title, and the production for this was phenomenal. With all of the little plastic pieces, it looks beautiful on the table. Azul is another gorgeous game, and it's very abstract. So you're going to be taking pieces and you're going to be putting them into your board, trying to fill this mosaic wall, I believe you're making in a grand palace. It's a very easy game to understand, but difficult one to win. The point system is where you're going to be using a lot of your brain power, figuring out how many points exactly you've achieved after placing each piece. Photosynthesis is another welcoming title. It's got a very interesting mechanism where the sun moves around the board and you're thinking multiple turns in advance. You're trying to plan your moves, not necessarily for the turn you're in, but 3 turns from now. Figuring out where's the best place to place your trees to capture the sun's rays and get the most points. It's a very good system, very welcoming, and it really pops on the table. Blokus is one of those iconic games that has really stood well since its release. It's very puzzly and definitely an abstract title. You're going to be competing against the other people to get all of your pieces on the board. And this is easier said than done, because the space you're all working in is very confined as you all start moving pieces towards one another, putting them down and closing in on each other. It's very, very thinky. It's not one I win often, but I still appreciate it for the amazing design there is here in this game. Hero Quest has just had a massive refresh in recent years, and I grew up on Hero Quest, the old school one. I refused to get the new one because I love the old one so much. Nevertheless, the system, as far as I know, remains unchanged, and you can get this and get questing, sending your warriors into the dungeons, dealing with all sorts of monsters and creatures. Hero Quest is a fantastic and exceptional design, which is made very welcoming to everybody. As far as I can tell, they haven't changed the rule set, so it's easy to understand. You move, you roll to attack, simple. You explore the dungeons as you go and encounter various monsters that you must overcome. And those are my primary recommendations for modern board games. Now don't leave now, because there's still a lot more sections to come up. But there are other board games, I'll put a few covers up now, that also will fall into this category, and I can't really give them the justice they deserve, and I know there's going to be games I've missed that people will put in the comments below, so please have a look and add your own recommendations for those that I haven't added. Some things will be coming up in the next categories, so stay tuned. Let's move on to the next one. Card games are just as varied as board games. They can come with all manner of different themes, different mechanisms, and different sizes. You can have a small stack of cards and you can have a huge box filled with hundreds of cards. This section is just going to discuss games where you get the entire game in one box. So we're not covering collectible cards or trading cards in this segment. These are card games where you get the entire game. Next up is Seven Wonders, and this game is going to have the drafting mechanic. You're going to take a card and add it to your tableau in front of you on the table. You're going to pass the hand to the person on your left or right, depending on which phase of the game you're in. And you're going to arrange a little tableau, a little city of loads of different buildings in front of you, and by the end of the game you're going to claim a number of victory points based on the ones you've taken. Whoever has the most is the winner. You will be managing resources, you'll be managing building chains, you'll be managing building your monuments, and if you get it to the top level you'll score huge amounts of victory points. You'll be trading resources with the people next to you, paying them for access to resources you don't have. Seven Wonders Duel follows on from Seven Wonders in using the same similar kind of mechanisms that you found in the original game, and it brings it to a two-player variant that is phenomenally well designed. It's very intricate. It makes you think. You are against your opponent and every move, every card you take is important. It's a brilliant design and just as good as the original. So if your player group is limited to 2 people, I would personally recommend Seven Wonders Duel. In Cockroach Poker, you're going to be using a lot of deception. You're going to be playing cards face down in front of opponents, and you're either going to be telling the truth or lying, but they're going to have to try and figure out which it is. And those cards are going to have pictures of 8 different animals included in the game, and they need to determine whether you are actually supplying them with the card that has that animal on it. Are you telling the truth or are you lying? If they guess correctly, the card goes in front of you. If they don't, the card goes in front of them. When somebody has 4 of the same animal in front of them, they lose the game. This is a brilliant game though, because it encourages a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking, a lot of laughter, really engaged. Even when you're not involved in the bluffing and the guessing, it's quite entertaining to watch and see everybody else either fail or succeed. In Machikoro, you're going to be building a little city in front of you. Every turn people are going to roll the dice and you're going to collect money depending on if those buildings you own match the dice roll. And you are then going to buy subsequent buildings from the middle of the board if you have enough money and expand it. And then every time that number comes up you'll gain more money, and over the course of the game you're going to build a little city engine and you're going to keep getting more and more money. And there's a certain point at which you have built 5 very specific buildings to win the game. If you manage to do that, you've done victory, and you have to do it before everybody else at the table. It's a great game, well designed and very straightforward. Canopy is a great game where you're building out a rainforest. You're going to be collecting animals and plants and building out a large scene in front of you, and these animals and plant cards will link together to gain bonus points, and at the end of the game you're going to gain so many points depending on how you've done throughout the game. Plants are seasonal, so every phase of the game they will be refreshed. You will lose all of the ones that exist. Your trees will remain. The higher you grow them, the more points you'll get. And your animals will stay with you till the end of the game. So this is a great game. It's got really gorgeous art and a lovely theme. Dobble is a fantastic little card game, ideal for families, ideal for friends, any kind of setting. In it you're going to be matching symbols on cards and putting them down before everybody else at the table. There's a couple of variant modes in the game, but the main one is there is a stack in the middle and you have to match your cards to the top card of that stack. As soon as you see the matching symbol, get the card down, announce what it is, and then we'll work from the next card. The first person to empty their hand of cards is the winner. It's so easy, so simple, addictive, fast. You can play multiple sessions in a row. Great little introductory game. Uno is another classic, one that I've only recently been introduced to, where essentially you're going to be working through your hand of cards, playing them, matching the numbers or the colours of the cards in the centre pile. You need to get all of your hand down first to win the game. When you get to your final card, you announce Uno so everybody knows that you're on your last card. But This game, there's a bit of backstabbing. People can increase your hand size. They can play cards that add cards to your hand so that slow you down from gaining that victory. It's a very funny party game and a very accessible game that anybody could understand the rules for. For Sale is a very cool little property empire card game where you're going to be collecting properties in the first half of the game, bidding for them and auctioning for high value properties ranging from level 1, which is a cardboard box, all the way up to level 30, which is a space station in orbit. These are all different properties. You'll buy mansions, you'll buy tents, you'll buy everything under the sun. With these properties in the second phase of the game, you're going to use them to bid for the amount of money you win in selling them. And this game is very simple, very straightforward, very accessible. Final one for this segment is the legendary system, in this case the Marvel version, so Legendary Marvel, because it's the most mainstream, the most people will know it and get on with the Marvel theme. The game itself is very straightforward. You will create a deck through a number of different heroes in the game, and you will recruit these heroes over the course of the game, building your deck, making your deck stronger in both attacking and recruiting more cards. You're going to be fighting the villains as they cross the main city, trying to escape, and you need to stop them before they do so, because if so many escape, you're going to lose the game. It's very straightforward, simple system. The cards only have two values. You have your purchase value, your attack value. It's incredibly streamlined and it's made very accessible. So that's all of the card games I recommend for now. There is more coming up on screen now, which I have played some of, and although I enjoy them, I don't feel I can give them a good enough description. They're definitely worth investigating and will be good entry points too. So we're going to now take a look at collectible card games and trading card games. This is a really hard category for me to recommend because this is an area of the hobby that can be a money sink if you're someone who is impulsive and always buying and always wants the next thing and the new thing. You're someone who can't control yourself. Collectible card games is probably not the place you want to be because you're going to lose a lot of money. There is a never-ending cycle of new products and new sets and waves coming out for all of these games to really pull people into it and get them to spend their money. But regardless of that, collectible card games are very fun. They are good games and systems in themselves. So I'm going to recommend two here, and there's three others I'll mention that are still active at the moment. So first up is the original, the OG Magic the Gathering. And I remember playing this back in the 90s, and to where it's at now, it's at unparalleled heights. It's really blown up, and every year there's new sets, new cards for all the different colours within the system, and they've even started delving into IPs and adding sets based around IPs. The one that's just landed is Spider-Man, and they've done in the past, they've done Doctor Who, Final Fantasy, Fallout, and a few others to name them. So where I would recommend you start with Magic the Gathering is just by getting some of the basic decks. There's a starter box out now where you get 5 decks in the box. I think that's a great starting point because they're just generic decks. All you need is a starter pack. You don't need to get booster packs or anything like that. Just a starter pack to get you a deck, and then you can play against whoever your opponent is. If you've got multiple opponents, buying one of the bigger boxes where you get a few decks is probably more ideal. But Magic is a very intricate and well-designed system where you play lands which form your energy, your mana, to allow you to play cards, play creatures and spells on each other in an effort to bring your opponents down to 0 life and eliminate them. A very good system, very easy to understand. It might be a bit tricky with some of the keywords, that's why I recommend introductory sets if you can get some at a reasonable price. Next up is Disney Lorcana, and that's a very new game. Obviously it's set in the Disney universe. Now in this game you're going to be playing a variety of characters, and you're going to be essentially trying to get the most points. You'll be playing characters and you'll be challenging your opponents, characters that are in play. You'll be doing the questing, getting the victory points. It's a very simple system that is welcoming and simplistic to learn. You can get starting decks, the same as Magic the Gathering, and that is my advice. If you want to play this game, get the starting decks. Buying booster packs They are expensive nowadays. Start with the basic decks and try the game out. If you like it, then you can get more, but that's where I would begin trying out this game. So those are my 2 recommendations for collectible cards. The other 3 that I would recommend is Keyforge. I haven't played it too much, but essentially Keyforge, you buy a deck and you've got everything you need. There's no need to buy more booster packs, but product is a little more scarce nowadays to find. Star Wars Unlimited, which I haven't personally played but has been getting a lot of high praise, so that's a good one to go to if you're a fan of that universe. And then lastly there is Pokemon, which is another OG card game. Very old system, but a very easy one to get into. If you were going to try it, again, don't buy the booster packs, buy a deck and verse each other, or there is starter boxes that you can get that introduce you to the game itself. I think they're called Battle Academies or something like that. That is where I would recommend you begin your journey. So these are the 5 card games that I think are ideal starting places if you want to get into collectible cards. But as I said before, this is an expensive part of the hobby and you should decide if that's right for you or not. So party games are intended to be simplistic and easy to understand, the easiest of all the titles. Not all of these will cater to large groups, but I think they are simplistic enough to be ideal for you to get out when there are people together for large gatherings. People can rotate and try out these games. So let's go through them. Maki Stack, you're going to be stacking different kinds of sushi into a stack to match the card in the center of the table, and all of the players are going to be competing as teams against each other to try and beat the opposite and be the first to match the pattern. You are only going to be able to use one finger though. Each player can contribute one finger to moving, and there are going to be 2 people aside. So between both of you, you've got 1 finger each to pick up the pieces and move them, and this is quite difficult as a dexterity game. There is another mode where one person's blindfolded and you're directing them. Very minimal rules knowledge is required for this game. You're simply off within 5 minutes, and it can be absolutely hilarious. Catch the Moon is another stacking game. In this case, you're going to be stacking ladders in a large construction in the center of the table. Everybody's going to roll the dice. It's going to tell you what to do with the ladder you pick up, whether you have to put it on 2 ladders, 1 ladder, or Catch the Moon, which is essentially the highest ladder. You have to stack it so that it is the highest point at that construction. And as you continue the game, it's going to build up into this huge monstrosity into the center of the table. But when you knock it, or when something collapses off of it, you gain a tier. And you want to be the person who has the least of those at the end of the game. Code Report is a fast, lightning quick game where you will roll dice and you have to be the fastest to get your finger on the domino that matches the dice roll. You're going to be competing against everybody else at the table. Tiebreakers are decided by the dimple in the middle of the domino. Amass 6 dominoes, you win the game. Just One is a word party game where one person will be guessing, there'll be a card in front of them, and all the other players can see that card and see the answer on it. And all of those players who are giving the clues to the person who's guessing need to write an answer on their little display. They then show their displays to each other, and any that are the same clue will be eliminated. So then the person who's trying to guess what the word is will only get the clues that survive, the clues that are unique, that don't match anybody else's. And this is a very good game that makes you think outside of the box. It's very interesting and can be a good laugh, especially when you all pick the same word. So this game encourages you to think differently. Number 9 is a very Tetris style game where you're going to be stacking numbers on top of each other to get the numbers to higher tiers, which will double then triple your points and so on. You're going to be using logic to put your pieces in the right place to build a platform for the next tier and then the next one and so on. And the higher you get, the bigger numbers, the more points you're going to get. So it's very tactical, very thinky, very puzzly. Tokyo Highways is another stacking game. In this case, you're going to be building a highway in the city of Tokyo itself, and you're going to be positioning your blocks and pieces so that you can build roads and go over other roads in order to place your cars. First player to place all their cars will win. But this is a game of dexterity. If you knock a piece off, it's going to cost you, and if you knock a piece, you could take out the entire construction and end the game. It's very funny, very tense as well. You need to have a steady hand when you're playing this game to do well. Men at Work is another one that follows this variety, same as Tokyo Highway. It's very fun, building a construction, following the card, and you get some really difficult things to build, but it is hilarious. My group loves this game. Codenames is a very good word game where you're going to be trying to link words to get someone on the opposite side to guess the answers. However, there is an opposition team, and if they guess them first, obviously it's going to benefit them rather than you. Now how it works is you're going to have a load of words in the middle of the table, and you need to tell them, for example, let's pretend there are 3 animals. So I might say 3 animals, and then what they've got to do is point to those 3 tiles they think match my clue. And if they get them right, we flip them over. And you're obviously racing against the other team to recognise these answers. But it gets really tricky. There is one tile that could lose you the game if they pick the wrong thing, and you'll be surprised at some of the bad answers sometimes people give to this game. It's quite funny. Scroll is a drawing game that is by far the most hilarious title in my collection. I've never seen so much laughter and so much change amongst the demographics of the group from the beginning to the end. And I've played this with all different situations, whether it be my family, friends, or even occasions where it's just acquaintances, and in all situations this game has ended in absolute laughter, to the point where my jaw is hurting from laughing that much, and there is not any other game that I can think of that does that as much as Scroll does. Now obviously there's a bit of a mature theme here to Scroll. There is some things in it that aren't suitable for kids, but it is a very funny drawing game where your terrible art will just make the game so much better. Now I'm going to have a bit of a dual one because both these games are relatively similar, but Coup and Love Letter are excellent little social deduction titles where essentially everybody at the table is going to get a role, and you need to try and figure out who everybody else is to try and get them eliminated. And the mechanisms within both are very streamlined and simple, easy to teach, understand, and challenging to win, but it's really fun. It's entertaining playing this game with everybody, and in both cases excellent social deduction titles. And that's all of the party games for now. There's a couple more that will pop up on screen now that I have played, I do enjoy, but if you like the look of them, you're probably worth doing some more investigation. Let's move on to the next category. Right then, the classics. Let's get into this because there's a lot of games. I'm not going to go into them all in detail. You probably know about most of them now and have heard of them over the years, but some of the most signature ones is simply the deck of cards. I can't remember when this was invented or created, but it's been around probably for hundreds of years. There's chess as well, which has been around for a very long time and is an established strategy game that is well loved and has huge amounts of following. There's Monopoly, that really built up the board game industry and made a significant wave. Then you've got things like Scrabble, the word game, Trivial Pursuit, you've got Battleship, the classic game, you've got Cluedo, you've got Connect 4, Dominoes, the whole list, Risk, the whole list goes on. These are epic games that have lasted time, and they have been around for a long time. These are established titles, mainstream titles, and many people will be introduced to the hobby through these games. And there is no reason why you cannot enter the hobby through these games. And I know I haven't listed them all, but these are timeless classics that have lived on and have a huge legacy, and a legacy of bringing people into the hobby. I myself grew up on a lot of these games. I grew up playing Connect 4 and Monopoly and Sorry and chess, dominoes, cards. I've played them all, and I have a profound amount of respect for these games. Yes, game systems have moved on and you've got more intricate mechanics, deeper storytelling, and a lot more on offer nowadays in the variety and depth of gameplay. But nevertheless, these are classics that are still around and on the stores today. They have made it to now, and they're still going, and people are still joining the hobby through them, and they deserve recognition for their historic significance in this industry. And I recommend them all as entry points. Absolutely, I'd probably recommend people to more modern games now, but there's no reason why I would shy away from any of these titles. I'd still play a lot of them now. So let's move on to the next topic. Right, so miniature wargaming and skirmish games, which is a very broad category. You've got hundreds of gaming systems out there. Obviously the most well-known ones are Warhammer, and I'm not a full-on miniature war gamer. I'm not doing it all the time, so I'm not the best to advise on this stuff, but I can tell you a couple of games that I think are simpler systems and easier for you to get into. First one is one that may not be around soon, which is quite sad, but it's tied into the fate of the company Simon. But A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones miniatures game, is a relatively simple system that is easy to understand. The rule set is not complicated, and you can move units out on their trays very easily, so you can command whole armies with ease. Better yet, they come fully assembled. You don't have to assemble any miniatures for this game. You buy them, they're in the box, they're fully done. Put your army on the table and start playing. This is one of the easiest entry points to a miniatures games I've ever had, and the rules are reasonably light. So I like this game a lot, but again, the future of the system itself is currently on a knife's edge. We don't know what's going to happen with Simon and what's going to happen with this title. Another one that's going to be hard for you to get your hands on, but nevertheless is still an excellent system for you to get introduced to miniatures, is X-Wing. And X-Wing is obviously set in the Star Wars universe. You'll be piloting small starfighters and battling against other starships in essentially dogfights, like aerial dogfights. You'll be manoeuvring around, trying to position your fighter behind them, trying to get the best shot on them, and try to eliminate all the other craft in the battle. The rules are relatively straightforward, and it's a very enjoyable tactical game where the positioning of your ship is very crucial. So piloting it is just as important as making the shot. I really like X-Wing. Again, it's been discontinued, but the product is still around. I've seen it in a few stores. So if you're interested in space dogfighting, it's definitely a good one to get on with. Warhammer is a very difficult one to get into. Now they're trying to make it more accessible with ideas like the Spearhead for Warhammer Age of Sigmar and the Combat Patrols for Warhammer 40,000, but it's not something you can start with. I personally think an easier entry point into the Warhammer universe is probably going to be Warhammer Underworlds. It's just a board game. You're going to get a small team of miniatures, which are easy push fit together miniatures that you're probably only going to have a handful to paint if you're even that bothered about painting them. So it makes that barrier of entry so much easier, and plus the cost is going to be a lot less. And you've got a tactical card game as well. You've got cards and you've got to move your miniatures around the board to position for objectives and attack your opponents. So if I was going to recommend an entry point for Warhammer, personally I'd pick Warhammer Underworlds, just because the cost of it is going to be so much less. Obviously then, if you're wanting to lead armies and jump into battles and things like that, I know the Spearhead is really good for Age of Sigmar, so that is probably where I'd recommend you have a look. If you're after Warhammer 40,000, you're going to have to go to other people who are more invested in this miniature side of the hobby to give you the best advice. So I think I'm going to cut it off there for miniatures, because I'm not doing it all the time. I don't have the most experience with miniature war games, and there are other channels that you can go to get that information. Obviously there's the one-page rule system, which I've heard about, that sounds really promising, where all your rules are condensed onto one page. You can get skirmish games where you only have a handful of miniatures and you battle against each other, but these are not systems I've looked into or I've tested, so I can't recommend them. The ones I've just mentioned are, for me, the easiest entry points for people who are new to this area of this space. So now we're on to solo games, and this was a hard category for me to work with because a lot of the games are quite complex and there's a lot going on in them, so as an entry point they're not ideal. However, there is a couple I do recommend, and we're going to go over them now. So the first one is Under Falling Skies. Now, this game was designed for solo play in mind. It's entirely designed for one person to enjoy it. In it, you're going to be facing an alien force who are coming down to attack the planet, and you must defend it. There is a whole host of strategy and planning and thoughtfulness that has gone into this game, and it really shines as a standout title that I highly recommend. If you're going to test the waters in this area of the space, I would recommend Under Falling Skies as #1 go-to, because there's nothing like it. It's puzzly, it's thinky, it makes you strategize, it makes you think about where you put your dice and allocate your dice. Is that going to force the enemy to move too far down to trigger something? It's such an intricate game. I love it to bits. The next one is 2 games essentially. It's Hostage Negotiator, but they essentially made Final Girl afterwards. That was their second game. And both these games are very well designed solo titles. Hostage Negotiator has you essentially doing what the title says. You are dealing with a criminal and trying to get the hostages out alive. But I will be honest with you, it's a very tough game to play and win. It's fun, don't get me wrong there, but to win it's hard. But nevertheless, I enjoy it, and it's not too complicated a rule system. The Final Girl, though, I would recommend more, because I think it's got a wider appeal. You are essentially the last girl in a horror scenario where all of the girls are being killed and you are the last one alive. You're trying to save the day, whether you're bringing down a monster, rescuing other people, I don't know, whatever the story is. But there's a whole host of different episodes that you can pick up, scenarios, and the one that I played I thoroughly enjoyed. It was well designed, and it's a great starting point for somebody who wants to play solitaire games. There's Aeon's End. As a deck builder, this is probably the one I'd recommend, because there's so much content out there. Now, it's not going to be the easiest rules to read, but it's not that complicated once you get into the turn structure. It's quite a straightforward game in itself. Essentially, you're building up your deck, you're making it stronger, and then you're getting to the point where you are bringing down the big bad boss, whatever that might be. Lastly, I would recommend you probably look at some roll and write games. There's a lot of them out there. I only have a couple here that I enjoy, but I haven't delved into this area a lot. But roll and writes are designed specifically for people who are after something where you just chuck the dice and then tick something off on your sheet and away you go. It's a streamlined gaming system, and it's a great place for someone who was playing solitaire games to start. But I think that's going to bring us to the end of this list. So what I've tried to do today is essentially give you a list of games that are great entry points into this hobby. Now, no matter what you are looking at doing or getting out of it, these titles should be great places to start. Now, of course, I'm not going to name everything. That's why the comments are there. That's why I like people to join the comments below. Add their suggestions, have discussions, tell people what you think. And I really do hope this is an entry point. This welcomes more people into the hobby, because it's a great one to be a part of. So, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I look forward to reading all your comments. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.